Good evening and welcome to Crawley Borough Council's Planning Committee meeting of the 8th of February 2021 even. I'm Jonathan Purdy and I'm the chairman of the committee. The agenda for this meeting has been published and is available on the council's website. The committee will be considering 3 planning applications this evening, and I intend to deal with those applications in the order that they appear in the agenda. There are no in-person public speaking rights at this virtual planning committee, so it's a public meeting held in public, not a public meeting. However, members of the public and ward councillors wishing to make representations on the applications have been given the opportunity to submit written statements in advance of the meeting. Any statements will be read to the committee by the Democratic Services Officer. As officers and members of the committee will be aware, since our last meeting, Councillor Raj Sharma, who was vice chair of this committee, has passed away. Our thoughts at this time are, of course, with Raj's family, and proper tributes to Raj's service will be paid at the next full council meeting. But I would now like to invite members of the committee to join me in a short silence to reflect on Raj's life and passing. Thank you. Thank you very much. I would also like to take the opportunity to welcome Councillor Gilly Hart back to the Planning Committee as its Vice Chair. Now, can I please ask the officers supporting the meeting to introduce themselves, giving their names and their job titles? Thank you.
Thank you. Ms Matthews, Democratic Services Officer.
Good evening, I'm Jess Tamplin, Democratic Services Support Officer.
Linda, could you please turn your camera on?
Good evening, I'm Linda Saunders, I'm the Planning Solicitor for the committee.
Good evening, I'm Mark Robinson, Principal Planning Officer.
Good evening, Val Cheeseman, Principal Planning Officer.
Hello, Dimitra Angelopoulou, Senior Planning Officer.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Clem Smith. I'm the Head of Economy and Planning for Crawley Borough Council.
Thank you. Before I invite members of the committee to confirm their attendance, can I please ask that they ensure that their mobile phones are switched off or on silent, that their backgrounds are plain, and that they will not be disturbed during the meeting. Committee members are reminded that they should have their microphones turned off unless speaking, and their cameras turned off unless they are speaking or requesting to speak. When asked to speak, please turn your camera on, unmute yourself and pause for 3 seconds to allow for the slight delay in connection. Committee members are asked to be aware who they will follow so that they can so that the voting process can proceed promptly and accordingly. Thank you. So item 1. No. Can I please ask the members of the committee? No. Item 1, apologies for absence. Have we received any apologies for absence?
We've had no apologies for this meeting.
Thank you very much. Items 2, 3 and 4. Introductions, disclosure of interests, lobbying declarations and minutes. Can I please ask the members of the committee to confirm, obviously, their names, the ward that they represent, if they have any declarations of interest to make, if they have any lobbying declarations to make, and if they agree with the minutes of the previous planning committee held on the 12th of January 2021, and whether they have visited the site of any of the applications. Thank you.
Councillor Ashcroft.
So my apologies, Mr. Chair, for my delay in getting onto the meeting, but Councillor Liam Ascough for Gossets Green and North East Broadfield. I agree to the minutes of the previous meeting. I do not have any declarations and I haven't visited any of the sites. Is that right?
Councillor Belbin.
Good evening, Councillor Andrew Belbin representing Pound Hill South and Worth. I have no declarations of interest to make. I have been lobbied on item 5 of the agenda. I have independently visited all 3 items, 5, 6 and 7 of the agenda, and I approve the minutes of the 12th of January 2021. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Hart.
Councillor Gilly Hart for Ifield and Ifield West. I have no declarations. I've been lobbied on item 5 and I am unable to comment on the minutes as I wasn't on the committee then.
Councillor Irvine.
Good evening, Ian Irvine, representing Broadfield. I've been lobbied on item 5. I'd like to declare a personal interest in item 6 as a member of the Crawley Cycling and Walking Forum. I'd like to declare a personal interest in item 7 as Cabinet Member for Housing, as a member of the Crawley Cycling and Walking Forum, and as a member of the High Weald Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty Management Committee. I haven't gone on any site visits and I agree the minutes of the previous meeting.
Councillor Jaggard.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Kim Jaggard from Maidenbower. I've been lobbied on item 5. I did independent site visits to item 5 and 6 and I agree to the minutes of the last meeting.
Councillor Mugale.
Hi, Maureen Mugale for Tilgate Ward. I have no declarations to make. I have been lobbied on items 5. I agree to the minutes and I have visited item 5. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pickett, could you please turn your camera on? Okay. I'll just go to Councillor Purdy next and come back to Councillor Pickett.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jonathan Purdy, representing Three Bridges. I have 2 personal non-prejudicial declarations of interest to make. In respect of items 6 and 7, I'm employed by UK Power Networks, who are a consultee who did not respond to the consultation. In respect of item 5, I have been lobbied. I have made independent site visits to all 3 items, and I agree the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 12th of January 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pickett.
Yeah, thank you for coming back to me. I'm Councillor Michael Pickett. I'm one of the councillors for Southgate Board. I have no declarations to make. and I've not visited any of the sites, although I am familiar with them in the general sense.
Thank you. Councillor Rana, could you please? Thank you. Okay, Councillor Rana.
Good evening. I'm Tahira Rana. I represent Broadfield South. I have no declarations to declare. I have not visited any of the sites, and I approve of the last minutes of the last meeting. Thank you.
And Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Good evening. Peter Smith, representing Ifield and Ifields West. I'm also a member of the Walking and Cycling Forum, which actually affects all three applications. I've been lobbied on item 5 by receiving a petition. I've visited all three of the sites independently, and I agree the minutes of the Planning Committee of the 12th of January. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for record purposes, we have Councillor Burrett, who is present but has no speaking rights for this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. The committee agrees that the minutes of the meeting held on the 12th of January 2021 are an accurate record.
Yes.
We will now move on to the planning applications, beginning with agenda item 5, a planning application CR 2018-0172, full, Gatwick School, 23 Gatwick Road, Northgate, Crawley. Please can the planning officer introduce the report to the committee? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This relates to the Gatwick School in Gatwick Road, Northgate, and we'll just turn to the presentation. Firstly, the location plan. So the site is in Manor Royal. Gatwick Road runs north-south to the west of the site. Tinsley Lane North runs to the north, and Wheatstone Close is to the east. The site is 2 former office buildings with an adjoining building in the middle, with former car parking areas to the front and to the rear. This plan shows the general arrangements of the proposal, with access taken off Tinsley Lane North, with a one-way system that then exits onto Gatwick Road, and also a separate access from Wheatstone Road. Just to point out, the car parking spaces shown to the rear here are no longer proposed. That element does need to be updated from various plans, but in a more detailed car parking layout plan you will show that that's no longer the case. Just to give a little bit of context to the application, the school opened in 2014 from these premises under permitted development rights and operated for a year. Then in 2015 we had the planning application for the full school for a permanent permission, but that was refused. Following that, there have been 2 temporary permissions which have been granted to allow the school to operate for temporary periods with reduced numbers in order to try and resolve the situation and see if there was a way forward with the proposals. And then in 2018 this current application was submitted, which is for the full school at its full complement, which would be a maximum of 1,020 pupils, and to be run on a permanent basis. Now turn to more detailed drawings. So this is the ground floor plan. If we just zoom in on the layout, This part of the building is the primary school or the primary entrance, and you can see it's arranged in a number of year classrooms, so from reception round to year 4, and also in the central section is the lower main hall. This then is the connecting building, which at ground floor level would be the dining hall. And then the other building is primarily the secondary school. At ground floor level, you've got a number of rooms such as English and resistant materials, drama and dance, some toilet and changing rooms, and also an exhibition space and an upper main hall. The application also proposes a small extension, which is this part here, and that's to provide a staircase to aid with accessibility around the premises, but also that will be a feature on the front elevation. When we get to the elevations, I'll run through that. Then to the rear of the site, a sports hall is proposed in this position here, and then also a new external hard play area, a Muga, a multi-use games area, and also some further courts in this position as well. And then finally, just to point out, there is a existing play area here for reception years, and then the early years would have a play area in this part of the site between the building and Wheatstone Close. And then the remainder of this rear area would be used for play purposes. Then the first floor plan just relates to the main school buildings. Again, this is year classrooms and then also subject classrooms as well, such as maths and science over in the secondary area. There's also a number of other rooms such as staff rooms, offices, special educational needs, SEN therapy room here, and also in the link building, then that would be the main library. Right, looking at the elevations, the north elevation, so this is viewed from Tinsley Lane North. So the building is to be refurbished with new external cladding added in a blue colour scheme, sort of graduated bands of blue, which you can see on the elevations. And then this part here on the front elevation is the staircase that I mentioned, and then this would have a logo for the school. So the main school entrance would be here, and that's to accentuate that it's that's where the entrance would be. And then very similar arrangements for the south and west elevations, again just carrying on the cladding and also adding a number of windows as well. And then the sports hall is a separate freestanding building, but it follows the same colour palette with the banding, has a slightly curved roof, and at either end these parts would be translucent panels. Street scene elevation, so this is from the corner of Gatwick Road and Tinsley Lane North. You can see the new staircase feature with the logo for the school. And also, I'll zoom in on that, shows some of the detailing of the materials. So they're the panels in the 3 shades of blue. The new staircases have a polycarbonate screen around it. So it just shows the various types of material. and then some 3D views that have been prepared. So again, this is from Tinsley Lane North, just looking sort of bird's eye view of it with the entrance feature here, the reception play area and the parking, the access through the site. And then looking at the rear view. So this is from Wheatstone Close with the sports hall here, and then the rear area of the school, and that would be the new play area at that point. Okay, some plans now with focusing on particular details. So this is the landscape master plan. So this shows a little bit more about what's happening around the school grounds. So this shows the trees to be retained or planted, in particular a number of preserved trees along the frontage to be kept. In this part of the site where the new play area would be, there are some trees that would have to be removed, but they are to be relocated to this part of the site here. Also in regards to the play area, at the moment that's a sloping piece of ground, so it would need to be built up on a retaining wall, and we have a detail of that. I'll just zoom in on that. So you can see that's a school at the moment, then the ground level slopes down right down to the pavement, and then Wheatstone Close. That would need to be built up to be level, and then there would be a retaining boundary feature or boundary treatment. That does say Unilog, but actually in condition 14 the details of that boundary treatment would need to be submitted and approved. And the tree plan shows in a bit more detail the tree details. So those to be retained and we're protected. So here we have a number of the tree preserved trees that would be retained and protected. There are some trees that would need to be removed, including these sweet chestnuts here that are subject to a preservation order. There's a tree here, an acer, and there are also some immature trees in the rear area that would need to be removed to facilitate the sports hall and the Muga. And the report sets out about the mechanism to ensure that either replacement trees are planted on site and or there is a contribution for the balance. In terms of drainage, there is to be a sustainable drainage system installed to deal with a surface water runoff, and part of that would be 3 underground attenuation tanks, so 2 at the front of the site and 1 in the rear, and that would be covered by a condition to ensure it was undertaken, and there's also a maintenance and management regime which would be undertaken by the school body. As part of the documentation associated with the application, there is a car park management plan, and the next 2 slides are the drawings from that plan, which show how car parking would work. So in the morning, parents would enter via Tinsley Lane North, and that would be a kiss and drop off arrangement, and that would take 19 cars, and then they would exit onto Gatwick Road, turning left. There's also in the morning kiss and drop in the rear car park, and that would take 16 cars. The green spaces are for staff, so there's some at the front there and some at the front at that point. And it's this plan that shows the removal of the car parking spaces in this part of the site. There was concern about a potential conflict between cars and play areas and when it could be used, etc. And as a result of the discussions, it felt that that was no longer needed other than this morning arrangement. So that's the morning. Then for the afternoons, it would be pick up from the front car park, but actually parents are allowed to park in the bays because they would need to be waiting, be ready and waiting for their children. And that is 39 spaces. And just to correct a typo in the report at paragraph 5.82, I think it says 19 spaces, is actually 39. And the red dots also show where marshals would need to be just to ensure the smooth running of the car park. As part of the proposals, the school are also putting forward a number of off-site road markings to facilitate access to the school. So this is where we would have double yellow lines and sort of school markings, so just zoom in on that. So double yellow lines on the junction there, the school keep clear lines here. Along Wheatstone Close, Tinsley Lane North again, double yellow lines, and then bollards along this part of the pavement of Wheatstone Close. And then some just changes to the access and sort of road markings there. I've got some photographs to show you. This slide is from 2018 and the next slide is from 2020. So this is the frontage of the site, and this is where the new entrance feature would go. And then this is the secondary school entrance into the building, which is fronting onto Gatwick Road. And then you can see the car parking area also wrapping round there. Then this is taken from the rear. So it shows the rear of the building and also what was the office car parking area. And it's in this part of the site where the sports hall would be, and the Muga and the other playing courts. This is looking, this is the rear of the site looking back up Wheatstone Close, and you can see this part of the site is where the play area would be. You can see the slight fall in levels there, and also the trees that would need to be relocated. This is looking in the other direction, and again you can see the slope to the land there. Another shot of the rear part of the site, and that's the adjacent industrial building, and this is where the sports hall would be situated against it or next to it. And then finally a photograph in Wheatstone Close with the school in this position here, and just to sort of point out a number of cars in the vicinity. And then some more recent photographs taken at the end of 2020. So this is the front of the site. The new entrance feature would be here. So this is looking from sort of Gatwick Road really across to the front car park area. This is at the rear. Now a fence has gone up to provide a bit more enclosure, although obviously the boundary treatments for the permanent application would be subject to the landscaping scheme. This photograph is along Tinsley Lane North, so coming from Gatwick Road along this way, and then this is Wheatstone Close, and just really to show the situation with regard to parked cars, both on the road, on the verge and on the pavement. Look at this, is at that junction that we just saw. This is looking towards Gatwick Road. And then this is Wheatstone Close, and again you can see the area where the play area would be, and also, yeah, cars on the pavement. Just to update members, yeah, petition has been received in relation to the application with 1,441 signatures in support of the application. A supplementary report has been submitted, has been prepared and has been circulated. And this was done because of the need to explicitly cover the public sector equality duty. And this has been considered throughout the process of this application in regard to those with protected characteristics, and in particular the impact of noise has been assessed in great depth. And you'll see from the report that the school would then have insulation and also air conditioning to deal with the noise environment, and the detail of this would then meet the relevant policy criteria, both from the local plan and also from the school's construction criteria. There is also a need to control the floor layout plan in relation to special needs and noise, and that would be covered by the requirements for the noise mitigation in the Section 106 agreement. A further update is in relation to conditions. So since the report was published, the applicant has had a chance to look at the conditions, and there have been some further discussions about them. So condition 9 is to be revised. You can see it on the screen there with the red writing where it's deleted. So it's just to refer to the landscaping to be carried out upon completion of development, and this just reflects the fact that the school is in occupation at the moment, so it just makes it more correct. Condition 13 relates to the updated car park management plan, which was received in January 21. And then condition 16 relates to the energy strategy, and it's been agreed between all the parties that actually those details need to be submitted prior to commencement of the sports hall development. So that wording has been amended. Just put the landscape master plan up there just to give a point of reference. Just to recap on the issues relating to this application, they are set out in full in the report, but to give an overview of the position, the local plan supports new educational facilities, and there is a need for additional school places in Crawley, and government policy gives significant weight to the establishment of state-funded schools. In the light of that, and following the 2015 refusal for the application for the permanent school, it is necessary to look at those reasons for refusal and those concerns and see if they have changed, been addressed or been overcome. The main area of concern has been the scale of the school in this location, and this does still remain an issue, particularly because this location is not a neighbourhood, a residential neighbourhood in the traditional Crawley sense, but is the main employment area of Manor Royal. And following on from that, the concern has been that the majority of trips or traffic movements to and from the school are car-borne, and as a result it has been considered that that conflicts with the sustainable development principles, and also then giving rise to parking issues in the locality. But it's also necessary to sort of balance that concern against a number of positive aspects that come from this application, both just as a result of the application or as a result of the amendments that have been achieved and the negotiations that have taken place. A significant one is the provision of over 1,000 school places. So at capacity, the school would take 1,020 pupils. The proposal has created jobs. There would be links to the wider business community, which has commenced, but also could be developed. And that you would get the reuse, or you have got the reuse of the vacant office building. So bringing it back into use. Following the in-depth concerns about parking, those matters have been revised, and we've had a series of car park management plans to address particular issues that have arisen and to try and make sure that parking takes place in an organised, disorganised, but in the proper manner, and that it's undertaken correctly. There have also been updated travel plans, and to the effect that there is now one for pupils, or one for the school, and then one especially for staff. And yeah, the car park management plan has been revised to relate to the current proposals. If approved, we recommend that a legal agreement be entered into, and this would then secure a number of highway improvements, in particular pedestrian crossing across Gatwick Road, which would then connect to the bus stops on the western side of Gatwick Road. Another thing from the legal agreement would be a financial contribution to an enhanced bus service that Metrobus would be able to operate. The legal agreement would also secure the community use of the building, which is set out in the report, but it would not only the community use of the sports facilities, but also facilities within the school buildings, such as the halls. And then finally, the legal agreement would also secure the noise mitigation works in relation to road and aircraft noise. With regards to the concerns about traffic, bearing in mind that the 2015 application was refused for that reason, since then the flows have been modelled and updated, and in particular based on current patterns of traffic, in particular from pupils or parents of pupils, and that has given a more realistic pattern, a more realistic understanding of how movements would take place. In addition, flows have also been managed because now the school operates a staggered timetable, and that has been revised over time as well, which then staggers the time that the school would start and finish in order to try and offset concerns about flows into the traffic network all in one time in the morning, all in one time in the afternoon. And with regard to staff, there are limited spaces on site for staff to park to try and discourage the use of the car, and now also we have off-site provision for staff as well to manage that. In terms of parent parking, those proposals have been revised a number of times over the course of the application, and now it's a permit operated system with the kiss and drop off that we ran through in the morning, and then the permit parking in the afternoon. And to the extent that West Sussex County Council Highway is now no longer object to the application and feel that that system would work. So the layout has been changed just to accommodate that. The staggered timetable relates to those permit arrangements, and the car park management plan also then ties into that in how the school would operate and manage the car parking arrangements at the beginning and end of the school day. And then also the legal agreement and conditions would then tie up a number of those factors so that they can all be secured and delivered. I think to summarise, whilst areas of concern do remain, I would say in particular, its location within the Manor Royal area, that must be part of the overall planning balance to be considered, and that has to be set against the positives and the improvements that have been gained during the course of the application, and the control that can be exercised via the conditions and the legal agreement. And so I would say it isn't on balance recommendation, and I would also point you to the fact that the significant benefit is the provision of school places, and it is considered that therefore the benefits do outweigh those adverse impacts. The recommendation is as printed, with the conditions as set out and amended, and with the and subject to the completion of the legal agreement. So the recommendation is to permit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There has been one statement submitted by a member of the public on this item. Can I please ask the Democratic Services Officer to read the statement? Thank you.
Thank you. So we've had one statement submitted. This is from the agent, JLL, in conjunction with the head teacher, local academy board members, the staff and the pupils of the Gatwick School. Thank you for the opportunity to submit a written statement in support of this important planning application. The technical aspects of this application have been considered in detail over a significant period of time and are now deemed acceptable for the planning officer. We therefore want to focus on the positive impact that this scheme will have on the school and its community. The school opened in 2014 with only a small number of pupils. We occupy a former office building which stood empty for a number of years. The school is unique in Crawley for being all through, which means we have pupils from the age of 4 up to 16, allowing a continuity of education. The buildings lend themselves well to such a school as there are 2 interconnected blocks with a large outdoor area at the back and to the side. The location of the school on Manor Royal has always been considered as a plus for the school due to the proximity of world-class science and technology businesses. It also has good transport links. It is a walking distance to the Forgewood development, and we are particularly convenient for parents working on Manor Royal. The school is well established on the site, having been operating for over 6 years, and we now have 829 pupils in total. As confirmed in West Sussex County Council's response to the consultation, the school plays a significant part in catering for the demand for school places in Crawley and West Sussex. And West Sussex is not aware of any other site in Crawley that would be suitable for a school. We received our first Ofsted inspection in 2017, which rated the school as good. The inspection report noted that the school provides well for learners who have a wide range of needs. The number of pupils on roll is growing rapidly, showing the confidence pupils and their parents have in the school. Since opening, the school has flourished and has benefited from loyal families who have put their trust in us despite the lack of facilities. If you approve this application, we will finally be able to start work on the sports hall, multi-use games area, library and canteen that our pupils deserve. To have additional facilities on site will transform the curriculum, but it won't just be our pupils that benefit. Once built, the multi-use games area and sports hall will be available for local businesses to rent for five-a-side football or netball and other sports. There will also be a new crossing which will benefit the businesses on both sides of Gatwick Road, especially the shops and cafes on the parade opposite. After the immense disappointment of the rejection of our first planning application in 2015, The school has worked incredibly hard to satisfy concerns raised by West Sussex Highways Department about the potential impact on traffic flow. These measures include introducing a staggered timetable, successfully managing a kiss and drop arrangement in the morning, and securing our off-site car parking for staff. We are confident in our management plans and are delighted that Highways has confirmed that it now has no objection to the plans. In order to demonstrate the support we have for this application, you will have seen the petition we have delivered, which contains over 1,200 signatures. The approval of the planning application and the provision of brand new facilities for Crawley's young people would be a great boost for the town, and we would ask that the committee follows the recommendation of the planning officer to permit the application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. The process for consideration of the application at this meeting will be as follows. I'm sure members are familiar, but nevertheless viewers may not be. Any committee member wishing to speak should turn on their camera. This will signify to the Democratic Services Officer your desire to speak. You'll be invited to speak one by one. When you're called, please follow the usual procedure, unmute, and pause for the link to make you live, and then please ask your questions and make your comments. Please turn off your camera and your microphone when you're finished and are no longer live. Once all committee members have had the opportunity to speak, the planning officer will respond to queries. We will now begin consideration. If you would like to speak, please turn on your camera.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you very much, Chair. Firstly, I need to declare a personal non-prejudicial interest as I'm a director of Manor Oil Business District. I just want to make a few comments following the officer's introduction of this application. This school is still in the wrong place. It's in a business district. It's a place that gets a lot of congestion, a lot of noise. It's near to a very busy airport in normal times. But I think that it's been there long enough now that the time has passed to continue to debate that point, and we must accept that this school is there for whether for right or wrong. I've been entertained by the school leadership team on 2 occasions, and it's very clear to see that there's a great team running the school. It's a popular school, and the pupils like it, and it's obviously a good place of education. It's also interesting to note from the petition that a significant number of the signatures come from Hawley and other places, and it seems that yet again we're providing school places for people, or services and infrastructure for people that don't even live in Crawley, when our own people are short of school places and in fact other infrastructure. We rejected the application in 2015 on transport grounds. I'm still not comfortable about the transport situation. I was passing behind the parade at the other side of Gatwick Road on my bike the other week, well, a few weeks ago now actually, and I was nearly knocked off it by a parent with a child in the car pulling out without looking. So there are people parking across the road at Gatwick Road behind the parade to pick up their children. We saw in the officers' photographs, currently people are parking their cars when they go to work or to school, actually on the pavement next to a bus depot. I've been in a bus down there to the depot. It's amazing how they actually get the buses in and out of that road. But again, I know that our officers, West Sussex County Council Highways, and the applicant and the school have put a lot of effort into coming up with a transport assessment that they say will work and will work with the increased number of pupils. And it seems that this is no longer grounds for rejection. So I'm going to support the application. I'm going to support it because it's a good school, because Crawley needs good schools. And I think that the time to continue to try and improve the shortcomings of this application is passed. So I'll be supporting the application. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Irvine.
Thank you. I won't detain you for very long. To be honest, I congratulate the officers and the school for getting the application to a point where we can consider passing the planning application. I mean, I think we have to face it that Manor Royal has changed over the years. I mean, not too far away from this school, there's a very large fishing tackle shop, which wasn't, something that was planned for Manor Royal when it was built in the 1950s. But I mean, it is providing an education for nearly 1,000 children, and they have to be the major consideration in this. If the children are getting a good education and they're happy at the school, then I think it would be remiss of us really not to give planning permission for this, because sometimes there's human considerations that go above and beyond the planning process. There has to be a degree of humanity in it, and I think for any child to have to move school because their school closed could actually have a devastating impact on their education. And personally, that's not something I can I could countenance. So yes, I will be supporting the recommendations. I wish the school every success, and I would also be grateful if it could be checked. I didn't declare a personal interest in this as a member of the cycling forum because I couldn't see any reference to the cycling forum being consulted in the report. So could that be checked? And if I need to, I do declare a personal interest. Thank you very much.
Councillor Jaggard.
Thank you. I would like to talk a little bit about the neighbourhoods in paragraph 5.23. Yes, Manor Royal is a business area, but we've got Forge Wood just over the railway line there, and it takes 4 minutes by car from Forge Wood, and it's actually a 24-minute walk. And we've also got the possible development going in Tinsley Lane that is coming back to the committee sometime in the future, and that's an 18-minute walk away, and that's 150 homes. So we've potentially got over 2,000 homes within walking distance of this school, and it is a good school. It's been rated as a good school. It provides links to the businesses, to Talus, to Electa, which is fabulous, and those are potential children that are going to be walking here. But I wondered, my question actually is, within the conditions and things, has any consideration been put to having a footbridge from the end of the Tinsley Lane over the railway bridge into, oh, I forgot what it's called, into Tinsley Green? Across there, we have one from Maidenbough that goes into Tilgate Woods, and I wondered if any thought had been given to providing a footpath which would dramatically cut down on the number of vehicle journeys, I would think. The other thing is about the number of children that come from outside, as the officer said, come from the outside. Councillor Smith also said from Hawley direction. Are those children coming to school because their parents actually work on Manor Royal? And surely it's better for people who are working in Manor Royal to bring their children, drop them off, and then go to work themselves. So in fact, it's not necessarily increasing the number of journeys, because those people would already be coming into Manor Royal themselves. The next thing was about the photos of the parked cars and things that are around. And yes, maybe they're staff, maybe they're parents, maybe they're people doing yoga at the yoga studios that was opposite, or visiting Subway or the tackle shop that Councillor Smith mentioned. Just because there are cars parked there doesn't necessarily mean that those cars are all to do with the school. And as I understand it, the county council are looking at having more controls within Manor Royal, because it is a bit of a nightmare there. I used to go there for yoga, and parking is an issue. And if the county are looking at it as a more long-term plan to looking at how that can be managed, that will actually be for the benefit of the school as well. my other thing is about this building was empty for 10 years before it was actually started as a school in 2014. So 10 years of empty building, office space, which apparently was grade A. I have no idea how that could be grade A. And I can't see it ever being used again without being demolished and rebuilt, which would be ridiculous. And this does actually offer employment. It is employing people. It's potentially employing 105 people, but then there are all the ancillary staff, all the other things that go in there. So it is being used for employment. I'm sure there was another question I was going to ask. No, I think that is the thing. It is a good school. The county council think it's a good school. It's providing lots of parental support for this good school, and I think that's where we've got to look at, actually, as other people have said, for the children. My only question really is about the footbridge, possibility of a footbridge into Forgewood area. Thank you.
Councillor Pickett.
Oh, thank you very much. How far is the proposed school site from the eastern end of the runway at Gatwick? Does anyone know? Okay, no one seems to know. My concerns really are about pollution and jet aircraft, particularly the larger jumbo type of aircraft, put out a lot of noxious gases when they go to take off and indeed when they land. And the school is east of the airport, which means that the prevailing wind, which is generally from the west, is going to blow fumes across the school. But I don't know exactly the position, because looking at the little diagram map that's been submitted, it's only shows a very small area. So does anyone know exactly where the site of the school is? No? Okay.
Thank you. I think that the planning officers will answer your questions once all questions have been raised and comments made, Councillor Pickett.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Belbin. You're muted. Sorry, Councillor Belbin.
Sorry, I apologise. I just want to make a couple of little points based on what other people have said and the overall presentation, and I read the report fully, which I thought was excellent. I'm very, very pleased they've done what they can to address the parking issues and car parking movements and stuff like that. I would invite anybody who thinks that this could be a unique situation to go and have a look around Hazelwick School at leaving time, especially in bad weather, which is my old school, and now I'm working from home during lockdown. I happened to drive around there one day, and I was horrified by the chaos that was caused by people waiting for their children. So at least I'm delighted that they have put a plan in regarding this. Regarding Councillor Jaggard's point about out of town pupils. Funny enough, I was talking about this with my daughter. My mother was a teacher, and my daughter is now retrained as a teacher. And she was telling me that it is now almost standard practice to allow out-of-town children of pupils, out-of-town children of teachers to go to nearby schools. And therefore, because obviously it cuts down traffic, etc., is the point which Councillor Jaggard was making. And therefore, why should that not also be the case for people who actually work in Manor Royal but happen to live outside of the town? So I think that's good, especially if the school, I understand, has after school and preschool clubs of various natures. Going back to Mr. Pickett, Councillor Pickett's comment about jumbo jets, I would estimate, I'm sure the council will give an answer, but it's under a mile to the eastern end of the runway. That's certainly going to be, look, it's probably about half a mile as the crow flies. The only thing I would say is that jumbo jets, by which I presume you're referring to the Boeing 747, are largely all being phased out, and we've got much cleaner, bigger, brighter engines now being used. But having said that, they're flying over areas of such as Forgewood and such as, or close to Forgewood, close to Hawley, and of course they go over Crawley occasionally. So I accept the pollution point which you make, Councillor Pickett, but at the same time, it is what it is when we live so close to an airport, I'm afraid. That's all the comments I was going to make. Other than that, I'm fully supported. Thank you.
Councillor Morgale.
Thank you. I'm really pleased to see that the school has gone back to the drawing board and come back with a brilliant plan, even better than what they've been asked. They've delivered. In my opinion, I see they've delivered. As for the transport, probably they'll be encouraging public transport or maybe bring back the school bus. I don't know. Is that possible? But then again, like I think Councillor Jaggard said, probably some of the parents do work in Manor Royal. So, the school run will be easier for them to drop off their kids, go to work, and then pick them up at the end of the day. That would be cutting down on the school run. The other bit was the financial contributions that kind of got me excited, that if they'll be contributing to Metrobus or something like that, that's money back in sport. Also connection with Manor Royal, there is, for the children, it's connection with work. I believe the school might even have, ask for, have apprenticeships with Manor Royal and, and for the children as well, looking at more than apprenticeships, but work. But yeah, I will be supporting this. And one more thing is the school being where it is. I mean, I went to a school which was 5 hours drive in the middle of nowhere, but look at me now here, I am a councillor. So I believe the position of the school maybe doesn't really matter in the scheme of things. We are educating children, and I believe the school is doing a good job. Thank you.
Councillor Irvine.
Well, I just wanted to make a point of personal explanation, Chair, which is that it was I who mentioned the fishing tackle shop.
Thank you. Councillor Pickett, did you wish to come back? No? Okay.
Thank you very much. I won't repeat many of the things that my previous colleagues have said that I might otherwise have spoken about. I'd like to thank the planning officers for their hard work on this. It has been a difficult piece of work, and I do understand the logic of the recommendation that it is a balance of things. In the case of the Gatwick School, I believe this is a good school that is of benefit to Crawley, as was witnessed by the petition, as indeed is witnessed by the fact that we have parents living outside the borough who wish to send their children to this school. And whilst it's not normal for the chair to come in and say such things, I will be supporting this motion. Thank you. Can I please invite the planning officer to come back and respond to the questions that were posed by the members of the committee? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to pick up on the questions, with regard to the question about the footbridge over to Tinsley Green, Forgewood, really that's outside the remit of the application. It wasn't proposed as part of the works or mitigation works and wasn't requested by West Sussex Highways, so that's not really something we can take into account at the moment. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things in relation to children attending the school from outside the area. My understanding is with a free school, which this is one, they don't have a catchment area as such, as opposed to other state schools, so that would allow for children from outside the borough to attend, and therefore works with the idea of parents working in Manor Royal, and then their children can also go to the school as well. In relation to the photographs, that was really just to show the parking situation in the locality. I wasn't particularly saying that they were all school parking, but obviously there's a lot of industrial buildings and premises there, and it was just to give a flavour of the parking situation in the locality. Go to the question about the runway, paragraph 5.120 runs through the relationship of the site with the airport, and with regard to the proposed second runway, which is southern of the existing runway, that would be the eastern end of it would be about 350 metres to the north of this site. So obviously that's much closer than the existing one, but that gives you a bit of an idea of where it is located. And in air quality was assessed by the environmental health officer, but it was felt that the predicted levels were within the recommended criteria. I think that covered everything. I think so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody else wish to speak or comment upon this application? I can see some cameras have come on, so the answer to that is clearly yes.
Councillor Irvine.
Thank you. If possible, I asked if the Cycle Forum had been consulted on this, so I would know that I would not have to declare a personal interest in it.
Thank you very much. Is there anything else? I can't see any other cameras. In that case, we will come back to you, please, Mrs. Cheeseman, if you know the answer to that question.
From looking through the report, I don't think a specific consultation was done to the Cycle Forum.
If I can't see any cameras coming on indicating anybody else wishes to speak, so all committee members having had the opportunity to speak, we will move on to the vote. A recorded vote will be taken by the Democratic Services Officer on my behalf. In order that we can have an organised vote on this in this virtual meeting, I will be moving this and all recommendations, and I will be asking Councillor Gilly Hart, the Vice Chair, to second the recommendations. Please note that by moving or by seconding does not itself indicate support for the recommendation itself. Members of the committee will be called upon to vote in alphabetical order. Once you are live, please state whether you are for or against the recommendation, or if you abstain. I therefore move the recommendation, which is to permit. Can I please ask Vice Chair Councillor Hart to second the motion?
I formally second the motion.
Will the Democratic Services Officer please call the vote?
Okay, so this is a recorded vote being taken on agenda item 5. Committee members are asked to vote for or against the recommendation before them, or by way of abstention. Please ensure that your video feed is live before declaring your vote. Councillor Ashcroft.
For.
Councillor Belbin.
For.
Councillor Hart.
For.
Councillor Irvine.
For.
Councillor Jaggard.
For.
Councillor Mugale.
For.
Councillor Pickett.
Against.
Councillor Purdy.
For.
Councillor Rana.
For.
And Councillor Smith.
For the recommendation to permit.
Thank you. So the vote has been taken with 9 votes for, 1 vote against and no abstentions on the recommendation, Chair.
Thank you. Application number CR 2018-0172 full. Gatwick School, 23 Gatwick Road, Northgate, Crawley, has been permitted, subject to the conditions set out in report PES 359A as amended, and completion of a Section 106 agreement to secure the elements set out in paragraph 5.153 of the report. Thank you. Turning now to agenda item 6, the land application number CR 2020-037 full, a land parcel Russell Way, brackets former TSB site, 3 Bridges, Crawley. Can I please ask the planning officer to introduce the item? Thank you.
Thank you. So the application site is a vacant brownfield site of the former TSB computer center of approximately 0.3 hectares, identified as a key deliverable housing site in the local plan. It is situated on the southern side of Russell Way, on the south, which is a short cul-de-sac leading from the Paymaster General Roundabout. To the east of the site is a public right-of-way, Tailgate Drive, footpath cycle path, which runs at the top of a wooded embankment, and it is structural landscaping. To the south is a railway line. To the west of the site is the former EDF building, a four-story converted office to residential building with habitable windows facing the site.
We cannot see any plans or pictures.
Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, yeah, sorry about that. To the east of the site, as I've said, is the right public way. This is the application site. To the west is the former EDF building, a four-story converted office to residential building with habitable windows facing the site. To the north of the site is Sutherland House, a five-story office building, part of which at this eastern part has been converted to residential. This application seeks planning permission, full planning permission, for the erection of an L-shaped four-story building, as it can be seen on this block plan, comprising 59 flats, of which 12 would be affordable housing. Vehicular access to the proposed car park here would be from the existing access on the western part of the site, via an undercroft of the proposed building. The primary entrances would be from Russell Way on the western side end of the site, and there will be a first floor vehicular access facing east towards Tailgate Drive, the public right of way. The scheme during the course of the application has been amended through revisions to the design of the proposal, the internal layout of the proposed units, the housing mix by proposing 3-bed flats, provision of footway and other matters. Local plan policy H2 identifies the site as a key deliverable housing site, and therefore the principle of residential development is considered acceptable. Regarding the design and appearance of the proposal and its impact on the visual amenity of the area, It is considered that the height and bulk and massing of the proposal is considered acceptable and would have a sympathetic relationship within the surrounding area, given the 4-story and the 5-story buildings in the immediate street scene. As it can be seen here, ground floor garden areas and windows have been proposed to create a more active frontage and provide some natural surveillance and security to the public realm along Russell Way. At the same time, the proposal, as it can be seen in this street view, would provide some natural surveillance and security to the public realm of Tilgate Drive footpath via new windows, balconies, and a new pedestrian route to the east. The building would have a flat roof. It would incorporate flat bay projections and will have balconies on each elevation. The proposal is considered to make an interesting use of bricks, brick bays, brick pier balconies to the front, brick in varying pattern, elements of lines of brick banding, and recessed brick panels within the bays. And all of these elements are considered to further articulate the proposed development. And as a result, in design and appearance terms, the proposal is, as revised, is therefore considered acceptable. In relation to the neighbouring amenities, the applicants have submitted a daylight and sunlight report in support of the application, which demonstrated that the impact on daylight and sunlight on the adjacent occupiers would be acceptable. In addition, specifically in relation to the former EDF building to the west, where there are some habitable windows, it is considered that given the L-shaped building, the angled high-level windows on this elevation, serving secondary rooms, and the straight window-to-window distances, that they are more than 40 meters, the proposal would accord with the minimum distance requirements, including the urban design SPD, and would not therefore result in harmful overlooking or loss of privacy to the occupiers of the former EDF building. Regarding the living environment for the future occupiers, all the proposed units would meet the minimum space standards and would all have private balconies in accordance with the requirements included in the urban design SPD. A communal amenity area would also be provided as a rooftop terrace. The proposed development, as amended with some internal alterations to the layout of the units, is considered to provide an acceptable living environment in terms of light and outlook. Another material consideration is the fact that to the south is the railway line. The applicant submitted a noise and vibration report in this regard, which showed that some parts of the building fall within the lower end of the significant observed adverse effect of local plan policy in V11, and would therefore require some noise mitigation, especially at night. Being L-shaped, the majority of the building, as it can be seen, it is set away from the railway, or it is perpendicular to the railway, and the applicants demonstrated that how the number of sensitive windows they are minimized, and amenity space have been relocated and screened to reduce external sound levels as far as practicable, in accordance with the hierarchy contained in the urban design, in the local plan policy in V11. However, the internal noise levels in some rooms specified in the guidance on sound insulation would be exceeded at night if the windows are left open for ventilation. As a result, the environmental health team has recommended a condition regarding an overheating and ventilation strategy, and subject to this condition, the proposal is considered acceptable in noise terms. With regard to access and parking arrangements, West Sussex Highways raised no objections to the proposed access arrangements via the existing vehicular access, and commented that the applicants have demonstrated that the visibility displays and access within the site would be acceptable. They also concluded that the proposal, comparing to the previous office use of the site, would not result in a road network capacity issue to the surrounding area. They, however, requested in this area to provide a length of footway of minimum 2 meters across the end of this cul-de-sac to make the development acceptable in pedestrian safety terms. The applicants have shown this on revised plans, and as it is outside the application site, this is and they need detailed plans with regard to this pedestrian element. This is recommended to be secured via legal agreement. These plans also show a drop curb here where the refuse store would be located in order to be safely accessed. The car park would provide a total of 40 car parking spaces, 3 of which would be disabled. The proposed development would have a shortfall of between 29 and 42 spaces against the council's indicative minimum car parking standards within and in close proximity to the residential, to Three Bridges residential zone. The application site, as previously shown on the location plan, it is in a sustainable location. It is well located for access by cycling, and it is well located for a number of services, and amenities are also easily accessible by foot. Three Bridges railway station, it is around a 10-minute walk, and it is also served along Hazlitt Avenue East and the Paymasters roundabout via several bus services. West Sussex Highways raised no objection to the proposed car park provision, acknowledging the sustainable location of the site, the submission of the travel plan, the existence of double yellow lines along Russell Way, prohibiting in reality overspill on-street parking, and the fact that the transport statement includes car ownership data, that for the Crawley area, it states that based on that car ownership, this would equate to a potential demand of 37 spaces. The proposal would also include motorcycle parking, and it would include several cycle spaces within the footprint of the building, here and under the undercroft. And all of these, they will comply, the cycle spaces and motorcycle parking will comply with the council's minimum standards. Given all this, it is considered that travel by bus, rail, foot and cycle could reasonably be utilised by residents of the new development, therefore reducing reliance on private car. Therefore, officers consider that the shortfall of between 29 and 42 car parking spaces is on balance acceptable. Conditions are recommended in relation to car and cycle parking and a construction management plan. Highway modification works in relation to the pedestrian element and the drop curb are and the final version of the travel plan are recommended to be secured via legal agreement. Furthermore, the proposal, the application site contains some trees along the east, west and southern boundaries. 10 of these trees are proposed to be removed. All these are category C trees, and the council's tree officer raised no objection to the proposed removal of these trees and considered that the retained trees along here in close proximity to the structural landscaping can be protected throughout the development with no significant future impact post-development. The submitted revised landscaping scheme with 23 trees, proposed trees, is considered acceptable in ecology and visual amenity terms, and its implementation is recommended to be conditioned. In addition, the impact of the proposal on the drainage and sustainability are all acceptable, subject to the appropriate conditions that they are recommended in the officer's report. The resultant housing mix of 23 one-bed flats, 33 two-bed flats and 3 three-bedroom flats as amended is considered a significant improvement to the originally submitted scheme that which now provides some market 3-bedroom flats. 12 units, 20% of the proposed development, are proposed to be intermediate affordable housing. Whilst it is unfortunate that the scheme cannot deliver 40% affordable housing, this has been justified in viability terms and it has been scrutinised independently on behalf of the Council. The proposal would therefore make a small contribution towards addressing Crawley's affordable housing needs, and the applicant has also agreed to pay tree mitigation and open space contributions. As a result, the officers recommend that the scheme is granted planning permission subject to the conclusion of a Section 106 agreement to secure the provision of 12 affordable housing units, a cascade mechanism and a review mechanism, a tree mitigation and open space contributions, highway modification works to include the footway and drop curb, and a travel plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that detailed presentation. We will now begin consideration of the application. Please turn on your camera if you wish to speak. I will pause and apologise to members of the committee. We do have one representation from a member of the public, which we ought to listen to before we begin our discussion on this item. Can I please ask the Democratic Services Officer to read the statement? Thank you.
Thank you. This statement has been submitted by the agent, Savills, on behalf of the applicant, which is Bellway Homes. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this statement in support of our application for the former TSB site. Firstly, we would like to thank officers for their report and their positive recommendation, which we fully support. Bellway Homes is one of a small number of 5-star house builders in the UK and has a proven track record for delivering high-quality design-led schemes. The application represents an opportunity to redevelop a brownfield site that has sat cleared and vacant for over 20 years. This is despite it being allocated as a key housing site within the development plan since 2015. The proposed scheme seeks to positively regenerate the site and provide much needed new housing within the borough, as well as a range of other public benefits. A design-led approach has been adopted from an early stage, which follows a detailed analysis of the site and the surrounding area, including the many constraints such as the railway line to the south and the EDF building to the west. The resulting design is the most appropriate for the site, while trying to maximise the number of new homes as sought by the housing allocation. We've had extensive pre-application dialogue with your officers and have engaged with key stakeholders. The scheme has also been amended in response to consultation responses once submitted. It's therefore pleasing that the key statutory consultees are supportive of the application and there has been no public objection. The final scheme before you this evening will provide purpose-built accommodation within a high-quality building which draws on old and new examples of Crawley's Newtown vernacular. As well as contributing to the Council's housing supply, the final scheme includes a number of key planning and regeneration benefits for the site and surrounding area, including the inclusion of 12 affordable homes, which has been confirmed as the maximum reasonable amount by the Council's independent advisor, the creation of a new frontage onto Russell Way, positively adding to the street scene and increasing surveillance onto the street, the creation of a new frontage onto Tilgate Drive to the east, increasing surveillance onto the footpath, enhancement to the structural landscaping on the western side of Tilgate Drive, a net gain in biodiversity across the site, and a site-wide reduction in carbon emissions. The proposals have been thoroughly tested and we are pleased that officers at the Council and their independent technical advisors have endorsed our assessments, leading to a very positive and well-balanced officer report with a recommendation for approval. We are committed to the redevelopment of the site and the necessary funding and construction team is in place to start works as soon as possible. We therefore respectfully request that the application be approved in accordance with your officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to consideration of the matter. If you would like to speak, please turn on your camera.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you very much, Liz. This looks like a jolly nice application in a good site, a good location, a good sustainable location. It's disappointing there's only going to be 12 affordable units, but I know that that is something that viability drives and it's difficult to argue with it. So let's look at it the other way around. So it's good that there's going to be 12 affordable units. And I'm also particularly pleased to see that the applicant has agreed to fit some solar photovoltaics on the roof, which are conditioned as well in condition 23. It's all too rare that we see that on planning applications, and I'm very pleased that the officer has been able to negotiate that for us. In terms of sustainable transport, this is effectively a town centre location here, as it's got a footpath and bike path that goes to the west up to the square about with pedestrian crossings all the way into town. And it's also, as the officer reported, adjacent to Tilgate Drive, which is a connection to the south to right down to K2, and to the north it provides a bike path all the way into Manor Royal and Gatwick Airport. So I think that will help ameliorate the shortage of car parking, providing people take up these opportunities. The one question I've got for the officer is I'm slightly confused about the work to be done at the eastern end of Russell Way, because there is actually a steep ramp and steps up to Tilgate Drive, which make it actually very difficult for cyclists in particular to move between Russell Way and Tilgate Drive. And it seems to me that we should take the opportunity with this application, and it's the West Sussex Highways appear to have alluded to it in the comments in the report, to make sure that becomes more of a ramp that people can get up and down more easily, even if they have to dismount to do so. And I wonder if that could be clarified. Subject to that, I'm going to personally to support the officer recommendation to permit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I can't see any other cameras on, so can I please ask the officer to come back with an answer to that question if we have one? Thank you.
I'm not sure that is it about the pedestrian footway at the end of the cul-de-sac? Is that the question, or it is a footbridge toward the that was.
It's the link between Russell Way and the Tilgate Drive footpath and cycle path, which are at considerably different levels.
Yes, yes.
And there's a ramp, and I think Councillor Smith can correct me if I'm wrong on this, was asking the question is how is that being catered for in the application, or is it being left as is?
It has been left, and the reason for that, I mean, whilst we don't have a specific condition, it is that it is a welcome addition, but we cannot really make the applicants to do that. It is subject to highways, and that is not something that it was considered that definitely should make the application acceptable in planning terms, and this is the reason it has not been included in the Section 106 agreement, whilst the pedestrian, the new footway at the end of the cul-de-sac, it is required to make the application acceptable in pedestrian safety terms. So that is part of the approved conditions, but we cannot really include that in the Section 106 agreement.
Thank you. Peter, did you want to come back? And I can see you come back.
Have I gone live? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I need to come back if I may. I fully understand the officer's comments, but I think it's a very sad state of affairs that we've got such an opportunity to link two things together to make it much more usable and accessible to people of all ages, electric bikes, people with children. But for some reason, the planning system or the highways seem to be preventing this simple joining up mechanism to take place, which is, it is a real shame, because here you've got a sustainable building right next to, at the core of the walking and cycle network, connecting you to the town centre, to K2, and the Hawth and Manor Royal and Gatwick, and yet we can't manage to do 10 metres of slope. I find that really disappointing, but nonetheless, I will support it. I thank the officer for the effort and trouble she's put into trying to achieve a good result.
I cannot see anyone else turning their cameras on to speak, in which case we will move on to the vote, which will be as before. I therefore move the motion, which is to permit. Can I please ask Councillor Hart, Vice Chair, to second that? Thank you.
I second the motion.
Thank you. Will the Democratic Services Officer please conduct the recorded vote?
Thank you. So this is a recorded vote being taken on agenda item 6. Committee members are again asked to vote for or against the recommendation before them, or by way of abstention. Please ensure that your video feed is live before declaring your vote. Councillor Ashcroft.
4.
Councillor Belbin.
4.
Councillor Hart.
4.
Councillor Irvine.
4.
Councillor Jaggard.
4.
Councillor Mugale.
4.
Councillor Pickett.
4.
Councillor Purdy.
4.
Councillor Rana.
4.
And Councillor Smith.
For the recommendation to permit.
Thank you. So the vote has been taken with 10 votes for, 0 votes against and 0 abstentions on the recommendation, Chair.
Thank you. Application CR 2020 037 full land parcel Russell Way brackets former TSB site 3 Bridges has been permitted subject to the conclusion of a Section 106 agreement and the conditions set out in the report PES 359B. Turning to agenda item 7, application CR 2020 0192 RG3, Breezehurst playing fields off Breezehurst Drive, Bewbush, Crawley. Would the officer please introduce the matter to the committee? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This item is for development of part of Breezehurst playing fields off Breezehurst Drive for the erection of 85 affordable houses and flats comprising 18 one-bedroom flats, 38 two-bedroom flats, 9 two-bedroom houses, 17 three-bedroom houses, 3 four-bedroom houses. It also includes access roads, car parking, the retention improvement of sports pitch, open space, and the associated works including drainage. I'd first like to start by updating some of the issues relating to the plans. So the under the plans to be considered, drawing number 16 P03 house type A4A and 17, the subsequent one, have both been superseded. 28 to 32, whilst drawings of relevance are not to be included on decision notice. Drawings 18 and 19 are revision P04 and not P03. Drawing number 24 should be P05 and not P04. In addition, in paragraph 2.3, it should be, rather than 3 trees being felled, it is 5. And the recommendation at the end should be to permit, subject to the completion of the Section 106 agreement and the following conditions. So if I first start by describing the application site. The red line area here is playing field off of Breezehurst Drive. There's Meridian Close to the east here. The road immediately to the north is Waterfall Crescent, which goes in a U shape.
Excuse me, Mr. Robinson, we can only see the cover page. You don't seem to have dived into the detail.
Sorry. Thank you, Chair. Hopefully you can actually see the site now rather than me carrying on without it. So again, the red line site here indicates the full extent of the application site, which is the playing fields on Breezehurst Drive. To the east of the site here, as I say, we have Meridian Crescent. To the north, Waterfall Crescent here, Dowster Crescent here, the Breezehurst Community Pavilion is up in this corner. Dowster Brook along the western boundary, and to the south along here is the A220 Horsham Road. There's a line of trees that run along this southern boundary here, and also along here where the brook is. If I go back, I should be able to show the photograph. So you can see from the photograph that we've got here, this is from the northeast corner of the site. So on the right hand side here, this is the most southerly extent of Waterfall Crescent. Looking to the west, There's a line of trees where the brook is. There's the bridge here that goes over to Buchan Park, and there's a line of trees all the way along the boundary with the A220 and a mature hedge. As you can see, the site is predominantly laid to grass, again as it was a playing field, fairly flat, although slightly elevated relative to the new housing here to the north. So the site would be developed really in kind of two distinct parts to it. The 2/3 of the site towards the east would be for housing, and there would be retained playing pitch associated with Breezehurst Community Pavilion to the west, as they're indicated here. The development would comprise a mixture of semi-detached and a short terrace of 3 houses. These are predominantly located where we've got these dark blue, light blue, pink, orange, these areas around here. The purple and yellow are where the flats, the 3-storey blocks of flats would be located. And the light purple here and the darker purple here are blocks of up to 3-storey maisonettes. The development itself would continue the road from Waterfall Crescent, which would come down. The road would be altered here to reduce speeds going around the corner. It would again come round in a U-shape with an access off to the flats and the maisonettes at the western end here. The development itself also comprises where the roads would also include areas of road calming, such as here where it's narrowed and there'd be a raised platform, and here, and there'd also be raised road narrowing and a raised platform along here along the southern kind of access road between the houses and the main blocks of flats. The proposal also includes quite a lot of amenity land for the development. As you can see, there's a pedestrian access, pedestrian and cycle route that would run north-south from Dowster Crescent down along the western boundary of the housing that would then return to the west and link up with the path that joins the footbridge that would go to Buchan Park. There would also be another shared path from the road access point here in the centre of the site with Waterfall Crescent that would go east-west, and again that would join a path that would run along to the north of the Breezehurst Community Pavilion. The development itself would also include areas of shared parking around the flats, here to the rear here, to the rear south of the flats here, and then around the frontage of the maisonettes. So the buildings to the south here would be three stories, predominantly with windows facing the northwest and northeast. Very limited openings to the south. The thick lines indicated here and in between the flats. So here and here the bin storage, along here and locations around here and here. Would be 3-metre high noise attenuating brick walls. Part of the development here would involve the excavation of part of the bund, and this is where there would be a few of those trees would be lost in this area. The location of this element of the development here along the south would result in loss of the hedge that currently runs along this part of the site. So the photograph here shows the site from the southwest corner. This is the hedge that I was just mentioning that runs along towards close to the southern boundary. Here is the pavilion with the 3-storey block of flats behind. As you can see in the distance here, we have the 2-storey houses from the earlier development of Waterfall Crescent and Dowster Crescent, predominantly brick, photovoltaics on the roof, red tile roofs with coloured panelling features. The line here is again the edge of the line of trees that runs along the boundary. At the far end here is the side gable of the house on Meriden Close. To the front of it here is are some brick garages, and then we have the rear of the houses on Meridian Close that face onto the site. So to give an indication of the sort of overall form of the development, I thought it'd be easier to view it in this axonometric drawing, which shows the development in 3D. So as you can see, the 2-storey houses located close to the existing 2-storey houses, except for this block here of this 3-storey block of flats, and they run up the main route from Waterfall Crescent here, turning round. So these are in this location. You can see the indication of the flats with all the different angles and different roof forms as well. Now the angles of the building have two purposes. One is to aid in the noise attenuation for the habitable windows that face to the north, northeast and northwest, and they also add interest to the buildings, which are a fairly substantial size, being a 3-storey. These two buildings to the front here facing onto the playing fields are the maisonette blocks. They have slightly more bulk and massing than the houses, but they are 2-storey where they face the houses on Dowster Crescent here, and they rise to 3-storey in the middle. You can also see indications of where the parking would be, and again in this 3D, this axonometric drawing also helps to clearly see where these sound attenuating walls would be in between the blocks of the building. So the scheme would be 100% affordable housing. I've already mentioned what the breakdown of the accommodation would be. In terms of parking for the units here, every one of the 3 and 4 bedroom houses would have 2 parking spaces. All of the 2-bedroom houses would have at least 1 space. One of them would have 2 spaces. There would be communal parking for the flats and maisonettes, and there are lay-bys such as this location here and here that would accommodate another 2 sort of off-street parking spaces. Each house and flat would be provided with a garden, and all of the flats would be provided with a balcony or some private amenity space on the ground floor. Some of the flats, such as on the 3-storey block here, would also be provided with privacy screens to angle the views from the balconies from being directly towards the facing houses and facing on this side of the road. I'd just like to, so most of this is set out in quite a lot of detail within the report, as are the policy implications, but I'd like to highlight that this site is an allocated housing site within policy H2 of the local plan, and therefore the principle of development here is already accepted, subject to ensuring that the impacts on the playing fields can be mitigated. Now the original scheme was for 65 dwellings, however the noise issues with the site were such that even the imposition of a 3-metre high bund would have prevented much of the site from being developed, and the block of 4 flats along this southern boundary with their walls effectively provide the noise mitigation to allow the site to come forward. Now, the flats themselves include quite a substantial number of units, and this is really why the number here is 85 is greater than the 65 that were previously proposed. What the applicant has shown is that the houses provided and the flats can all be accommodated, will all be provided with adequate amenity space. All of the units that to be proposed would meet our standards in terms of floor space. Rooms would all have an acceptable outlook. The distances between facing windows is also acceptable, and this is also in relation to the impact on the existing houses in the area, where they are slightly closer, have a side relationship from this unit here on Waterfall Crescent to the 3-storey flats, and where there are these facing relationships, it's either onto the side here with a fairly significant gap, front, including the front gardens, the road, and then quite a lot of space, and between and down here where we have Waterfall Crescent and Dowster Crescent facing these two houses, there's more than there's a 21-metre gap between those, which again will comply with our standards. There would also be this intervening path. The same applies down here with these houses on Dowster, where there'd be a 21-metre gap at least to the side elevation here of the maisonettes, and they're also separated from them by a shared parking area and a path. So the overall provision of accommodation, the level of amenity space and parking is considered acceptable in principle, and shows that this can be accommodated on the site. It's therefore considered that in principle a higher number of units can be provided on this site, and this would comply with the requirements of the Breezehurst development brief, as the loss of the playing field, it has been agreed, can be mitigated by works to the retained playing field, including drainage, ensuring it's linked to the Breezehurst Pavilion, and also by additional works to the playing fields on Skelmersdale Walk to be linked to the retained playing field, and then money is put aside to ensure that the maintenance is undertaken. This approach has been supported by Sport England, who now have no objection, subject to ensuring that the monies are ring-fenced for these elements, and this is why there's this development is subject to a Section 106 agreement to require these to be provided. So the design of the units is considered sympathetic to the existing houses. As we saw from the photograph earlier, the houses are of a fairly similar design. They again would be brick to match the houses that we have here. The flats would be a more contemporary design as meets their more prominent. They have a more prominent location at the end of roads. So this just shows effectively the proposed development from the southwestern corner. You can see the relationship between those houses facing the site to the north as they face onto the south. Again, the specific details of relationship between individual units is set out in the report, so I don't intend to go that into any detail. But on the basis of what's been set out there, this is considered it would not have a harmful impact on the amenities of existing residents. So this drawing is just to illustrate that the provided to illustrate the areas of landscaping provided, which includes amenity areas for the flats, gardens, which are indicated in light blue, green. The darker green are the private amenity spaces for the individual units. The proposal actually also demonstrates where trees can be accommodated on site, both so that both the number of housing units provided with trees, 85, plus there's space within the site overall to replace trees that would be lost due to the development going in. As the site also includes a much far area, because it does include the playing field over here at the western end, there's potentially scope for a bit more planting in these areas too. As you can see, what this also shows is the tree line along the southern boundary here would be retained. This is structural landscaping. It's also effectively important in terms of its context with countryside, because it screens the whole of this site from the countryside which we have, and Horsham district here on the other side of the A2 to 20 Horsham Road. The level of separation, rotation, and the retention of the structural landscaping here, and the potential for it to be reinforced by additional planting, means this is not considered to have a harmful impact on the countryside, particularly when the playing fields closer that have a much more direct relationship to the footbridge where people would mostly see the site from, is over here at the western end of the site. So there was a concern initially from Sussex Police that the flats here along the southern part of the site would result in there being limited natural surveillance of the parking areas to the rear here. Now discussions with Sussex Police, it's been agreed that in order to ensure that there is more surveillance of these areas for residents, that CTV can be placed in here, and also be control over the lighting and the landscaping in these particular areas to ensure that they're kept relatively low. Other elements of the site are considered fairly standard. There is good overlooking from the path along here to the north, both from the existing houses here and from some of the windows in the houses that would be facing onto it. Very good overlooking again of the footpath that would run down this western end of the boundary, and other relationships are fairly ordinary. You've got houses and flats all facing onto the roads. On this basis, it's considered that there would be an acceptable impact on crime and antisocial behaviour. For the time that the development's being erected, there would be a positive local finance consideration with the builders' employment at that time as well. It's considered overall that the scheme is acceptable to provide 85 affordable units and an acceptable layout with acceptable amenity and living conditions for future residents, acceptable relationship with existing owners. The impact on the highway would be acceptable. There's an adequate parking provision, and the scheme overall would be provided with a good sort of street scene and overall environment where there could be planting and amenity space for trees and other factors. It would also potentially have good pedestrian and cycle access, again, as there would be a non-vehicular access point added onto Dowston Crescent here to run through this area, which would adjoin into the paths here. Subject therefore to the completion of the Section 106 agreement, it's recommended that this application be permitted, subject to the conditions that are set out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. There have been 3 statements submitted by members of the public on this item. May I please ask the Democratic Services Office to read the statements? Thank you.
Thank you. The first statement has been submitted by Hannah Wheeler, who is a local resident living nearby to the application site. We have a number of objections about the building of these houses, which have been submitted at the consultation meeting as feedback and again on the planning application. We're about to enter an unprecedented economic time. I have huge concerns that this will become an unfinished project as the country tries to re-establish itself. There are already huge housing projects in the surrounding area that are providing thousands of new properties on big estates being built. Why is there a need to build on this small green space that is one of the last left in Bewbush area? Building is already taking place at Forge Wood, Kilnwood Vale and proposals for Ifield and Pease Pottage to name but a few. And actually none of these are finished yet, so what is the rush for 85 more? None of the infrastructure that was promised with the build of Kilnwood Vale has been provided yet either. 85 houses will bring another additional influx into all the local amenities that are already incredibly stretched. Schools, dentists, doctors, social areas, transport, to name but a few. This will place an unnecessary strain on a community already under huge pressure and strain. We already can't get a doctor's appointment, and people can't guarantee that they can get their children into local schools. How is adding to our community going to improve this? The increased traffic is a huge concern for our community as well as additional pressure on parking. Plans indicate only 1.5 spaces per property. This will impact surrounding roads. This will impact surrounding roads and increase traffic outside our houses, and we do not want to be permanently battling to get people out of our private spaces. Many people, clubs and groups use the field for exercise and socialising. Social clubs, dog walkers, children playing and families. It has a community feel and we all look after each other and the space around us. Building on this space will change the community. Where do you expect the people to go that use this field? Green open space that is so safe is becoming harder and harder to find as you keep building on it. We are also concerned about the flooding potential when you remove the field. When there is heavy rain, you can already see that there is a strain being put on the area with roads starting to flood. With houses built on the field, a huge area of natural drainage will be taken away. The field itself has already become sodden under rainfall. We bought our house facing the field for the green open space in front of it. We were told there were no plans to build on the field, although now this appears to have been on the cards since before we bought our house, and also has insultingly been called Phase 2. At the time of our purchase in 2014, we were not told in searches that there would be a Phase 2 or that we were indeed in Phase 1. How can that be correct if you already had this earmarked, which is what the documents now suggest that are available? There is indication that this was identified in 2012. This seems like it was being hidden at the time of our purchase, and from what I gather at the meeting we attended, even as recently as 12 to 24 months ago when people purchased, nothing was highlighted in searches. It appears no one that bought in what you call Phase 1 was aware. Why is that, and how can that be correct? This may have affected our decision to purchase our home had the information had not been hidden from us. I appreciate you don't want comments about house prices, but the fact of the matter for us is that our house price will be affected, as you are building on a huge selling point for our homes, so it's frustrating and insulting that you don't consider that an impact. Who will be responsible for any damage or maintenance that is needed for our properties or vehicles while building, and the mess that takes place? We have solar panels and boarding panels on the fronts of our houses and garden spaces, and not to mention the dust that will get in our houses. Why should we be out of pocket to maintain our homes and community and not being able to sit in our gardens or homes peacefully, or do something as simple as hanging our washing out? What will be done to protect my car? Our community will suffer. There will be substantial noise disruption while this building takes place. I, like many others, am currently working at home due to the crisis the world finds itself in, and many people will work from home permanently or do shift work or have small children that will be sleeping during the day. What will be done to avoid the noise disruption? We are right on the edge of the field, so I feel this will be incredibly disruptive to us, not just the noise and disruption from the building site itself, but also from the additional site traffic and machinery that will be constantly in use. We live in one of the houses facing the field, and you're placing a 3-storey masonette in front of our actual property, so we will go from buying a house for a view and open space and light to being overshadowed by 3 storeys. This will create a loss of privacy and light for us. Why are they being placed right in front of the properties? Why not at the end of the field by the road with the flats where they are less intrusive? This is one of my biggest objections, and if this must go ahead, I would be happier if these were 2-storey houses. To be told that the houses will be good for us as they will reduce road noise at the drop-in session we went to last year was quite frankly insulting. We have huge concerns about the green space that will remain and what you will do with it. We do not want another 3G type pitch and play area like Broadfield Stadium that is plagued with antisocial behaviour such as drugs, stealing, kids being mugged or beaten up. We do not want that on our doorstep. In addition, we do not want an alleyway to be created between the fence and the new houses, as alleyways will tend to breed antisocial problems. Could a barrier of trees or greenery be put between us and the new houses to try and maintain some sense of greenery? It seems this plan has been done with no consideration to those of us who bought our houses facing the field and were sold them with the field as a huge selling feature. What will be done to offset the disruption to the nature in the area? A full condition survey should be completed for the area and not just the perimeter houses. Can you confirm that will be done? Please take this as a full objection to the proposal. That is the end of the first statement on this application. The second statement also comes from a neighbour to the application site, from Myra Goodenough. Firstly, I would like to state my annoyance at having to object yet again. I hope that the delay is your own, not mine, and will not hinder my objection in any way. I hope my objections will be heard and taken into account. I also hope to get some feedback. We live at 13 Dowster Crescent, which is directly opposite where you're planning to build, so we are very concerned about what will happen, when and how. We have 2 small children and we use this field a lot. It was a massive reason why we bought our house, and we love the community feel that we have here. I really want to emphasise this, as I feel the community feel and spirit is very important, especially at this time. It also doesn't happen in many places these days, and we would hate to lose this. We assumed at some point the field would be built on, but having asked before we bought our house 5 years ago, we were assured by Countryside that they wouldn't be built on as the field is in constant use. It also did not show on our survey or anyone else's that we've spoken to, which I find awful considering that a meeting regarding this matter, it was said that this was always known as phase 2. So why the secrecy? Why was this not shown in any survey? Surely we must be offered some compensation for this. If it was always known as phase 2, then just tell people. It would have been less of a shock and we could have dealt with it at the time. It feels very underhand. We don't understand why the masonettes need to be so close to our houses. Surely that blocks out our view and reduces the values of all our existing houses. If they were all on the opposite side, nearer the Horsham Road, they would have more privacy and it would still feel a bit more spacious for us. Directly opposite where we live and park our cars, there is currently a metal fence. Can we know if this will remain? It was also discussed at a meeting that you would look to plant high trees or greenery along this fence so that we have some privacy. We also want to ensure that there won't be any type of alleyway along here, as this would make it feel unsafe. I'm very concerned with the building work that will happen. The dust, dirt and noise with 2 children is not ideal. One of my children suffers with asthma, so the dust will affect him. What hours of the day will work commence and end? My husband also works from home, so noise disruption will affect him too. Again, I know you have to proceed with work, but we just need to know how this can be minimised and how we can plan our days around the construction. Lastly, has consideration been taken into the already very strained Bewbush Medical Centre? We constantly have issues trying to get an appointment, and with all these new properties being built, what doctors will they use? Are there plans for a new surgery, shops, etc.? I do understand that new buildings are needed and necessary. However, I'm sure you know how unsettling it can be for us. And again, we would like to feel assured that you are looking out for our interests and our properties too. That's the end of the second statement. And there is one final statement on this application, also from a neighbour of the application site, from Nicola Godwin. I'm still objecting to this planning of 85 homes, even more so now with the current pandemic. I live with a view of the playing field, and this was the selling point when we viewed the property back in 2014. There was never any mention of this site being phase 1 and no mention of building on the playing field. Due to the current crisis of the COVID-19 pandemic, I myself and many others have lost their jobs and have made good use of the playing field. My point is there are so many people in this situation, and with there not being much work in Crawley and Gatwick, how can this building commence? How can people afford to pay rent on a property when they have no work in the area? Buckham Park has been extremely busy, so where are visitors going to park to get to the forest? Probably on the surrounding roads of the new builds and where we live. Buckham Park will get an overwhelming amount of people visiting. I fear it will ruin the countryside. The playing field has been a lifeline for the community, people with anxiety and people that live in flats. I should imagine they have appreciated the playing field as it has provided space, somewhere to get out to have some fresh air and exercise. It has been very busy in the summer months, especially with small groups of people doing exercise classes and football training classes. It will be very sad to see this playing field taken up for housing, especially as there are so many houses being built in West Sussex. That is the end of the third statement, and I should also say for the committee's reference that we did receive a fourth statement in objection to the planning application, but as per the council's virtual procedure rules, we could only accept the 3 statements from objectors. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms Tamplin. We will now begin consideration of the application. Please turn on your camera if you wish to speak.
Councillor Pickett. Oh. Councillor Hart.
Thank you. Thank you for the detailed presentation. The first point I'd like to make is with regard to the playing field. That I believe is to be redeveloped. What's the timescale for doing that? Will it be done in conjunction with the house building? Will it be ready in time for the first occupants to move in? Will it be done at the end once all the housing is finished? And secondly, it says in the pack that we have that you're looking at, excuse me while I prompt myself, recommended that 20% of all the parking spaces will have electric charging points. How will they be allocated? That's it. So thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Ms. Firstly, I'd like to say that it's terrific to see 100% affordable housing on this site and 85 units. I'm intrigued by the comments from the objectors regarding the lack of awareness of this site, because I'm led to believe that it was actually included in the 2015 local plan, and I think Mark Robinson said it was in for 65 units, so it was known about. It's not the duty of the council to tell people it's in the local plan. I assume that's something they should talk to their solicitors about if they weren't informed. But nonetheless, it's interesting to see when you look at the overview, you compare the density of the existing housing to the new area at 85 units. And we need to recognise that we are obliged by the National Planning Policy Framework changes that the government have imposed on us to increase our densities, which I believe is why it's gone from 65 to 85 units. But having said that, I think that you can't fail to acknowledge that a lot of effort has gone into the general design and layout, which to me it looks very nice, with the paths, with calming measures for the motor traffic, connections into Buchan Park, and also the retention of the playing field. So all of those I think are very good features of the scheme. And particularly noticeable from the, I think it was called astronomic views, is the number of solar panels on the buildings as well. So yes, it's a shame to lose green space. I feel very sympathetic towards the people that have bought houses looking out over the green space, and some of them appear to have been misled by somebody, not by the council, I don't think. But nonetheless, we do need homes. We will have 85 affordable units for Crawley people off our waiting list. It's a nice design. I'm happy with it, and I shall be voting for the officer recommendation to permit. Thank you.
Councillor Rana.
Thank you, Ms. I mean, I know this area very well. I used to live there more than 20 years ago, but I moved from then. I lived very, very nearby, and I used to take my children, used to go there, go to the leisure centre, and I've been there hundreds and hundreds of times. And this is one of the very nicest areas of Bewbush as well. I mean, the field is really massive, or used to be massive. And then I do feel a bit sad for the residents, actually, because, I mean, the field is being taken away, where I know, because children used to play football there, exercise, and people still do that. But then I expect since then, maybe the population has doubled, maybe tripled, and more houses are needed. And maybe, like one of the residents said, maybe if there could be more trees, maybe blocking, so they don't have to look at those houses there all the time. But trees would be built or something. But I do feel a bit pleased, though. At least these houses are affordable, and they're going to be houses and masoners, and the flats are going to be only 3 stories high. So that's a good sign, actually. I mean, I think I'm for the recommendation, because I mean, I know we do need more housing in Crawley, especially houses and masoners. So that's good. Thank you.
Councillor Jaggard.
Thank you. Yeah, I quite like the design of this development. It does seem quite spacious compared to some of the others that we've seen coming before us recently, particularly some of those in Forgewood. This seems to be actually a lower density. And I'm also pleased that the electric vehicle charging points have been included, but particularly as it was one of the recommendations within the climate change scrutiny panel. So I'm pleased in that respect, but I do have sympathy for the residents who made the statement that was read out. And I appreciate that it is in the local plan as a potential development site, but I have concerns that another playing field is being built on, particularly when it's become clear recently how important our open spaces are. And there's obviously a lot of controversy at the moment about adventure playground sites, and I know that Councillor Lamb has mentioned that he would quite like those built on as well, and I am very concerned about this lack of open space. There are a couple of things I'd specifically like to ask about. On the website it says that this application has expired, and I wondered if that could be clarified, please, because that implies that it has stopped. And the other thing is about Sport England sent in 2 responses objecting to this development, and it says that it has a holding objection, and that is noted at 5.3 and 5.73, and I just want to make sure that their objections have actually been dealt with within the football pitch that is there. And can you let me know whether that football pitch is going to be still an open space that can be used by all the neighbouring houses, or is it going to be specifically allocated to a club and be fenced in? I quite like it to be open to everybody to use on a regular basis. And lastly, going back to the resident that had submitted comments, I know we normally have limits of working hours and things like that. I couldn't actually see them in the conditions, and I'm just wanted to be assured that there will be hours of working and so that the residents can have peace at weekends and evenings. Thank you.
Councillor Irvine.
Thank you. Yes, I have sympathy with the people who object to losing the playing field for building, but of course, at one time, virtually the whole of Crawley was fields, and then in 1946, or whenever it was, the new town was started, and most of those fields got built on, and ever since then, at times we've had to build on more land that people have objected to. I can remember the outcry when the council was proposing to develop Maidenbower, for example. We do, as Councillor Rana said, we do need more housing. One of the things I'm pleased about this proposed development is that it is going to be developed to very, very high environmental standards to reduce carbon emissions, and as such, I think that it will be. Although we've had two similar schemes in Crawley before at Three Bridges and Dobbins Place in Ifield, this the scale of this will actually make it an exemplar for Crawley and for surrounding areas as to how buildings can be developed to an environmentally friendly standard. So I'll be voting for it, and I hope everyone else will too.
Thank you. Councillor Pickett.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to point out that some of the contributions here have made the observations about destruction and noise and dust, etc., during the construction. Actually, that is not a planning consideration, it's irrelevant. That's all.
Councillor Mughali.
Just to echo what some of the other councillors have said, I do really feel sorry for, you know, the residents who will have their, you know, especially with the open space, because as we're aware, there's many communities who've been using the playing fields. So I'm hoping that the one that's, you know, the proposal to come in earlier so that, you know, not much time is lost. And also, you know, I hope this won't set a precedent for building on playing fields. So, you know, we need to take that into consideration. Thank you.
Councillor Purdy.
Thank you very much. I won't repeat things that have already been said, but I do echo the concerns raised about the loss of the playing fields from some of the other members. What I would say, an element I find appreciative of from officers in the paper is the sums secured to support the surviving piece of playing field, is the fact that there, as well as a cost to contribution to fund it in the first place, there are also ongoing contributions to conduct maintenance, which is something that I hope the residents would be supportive of, because it's one thing to build something in the first place, but if you don't look after it, it will go to rack and ruin. And this Section 106 agreement has the ability to not prevent that from happening. I have a question around the design of the houses, or to be more accurately, the flats that are going along the A2220. Described as 3-storey blocks with very small windows onto the roadway. I wasn't entirely clear about the design of the houses. Presumably they are being designed with living rooms and bedrooms not facing onto the 2220, so they don't have the double whammy of facing the road and having a small window. I think a little bit of update on that would be useful. Thank you very much.
Councillor Mughali. You're currently muted, Councillor Mughali.
Just to add on to what one of the residents put in her report is to have to avoid having the walkway, the concrete, and having trees there. That is open space and there's greenery there, so it might be, you know, better than concrete. Thank you.
Councillor Jaggard.
Sorry, I apologise for coming back in, but Councillor Purdy has just reminded me of something. With the windows that are facing the road, the main road, the main Horsham Road, can you just confirm whether or not they will be opening windows? I know that we've had in the past at the Tinsley Lane development, which we turned down, there was the possibility of having windows that did not open because their sole function was to prevent noise and to you know, make a barrier. So I'm just wondering whether you know whether the windows are going to be opening windows on that Horsham Road side of the flats. Thank you.
Mr. Robinson, I think that's it for the moment. If you could come back with answers to those questions, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'd first like to start off by answering Councillor Hart's question about the timescales for building and the playing fields. There isn't anything absolutely defined as to when the works will be undertaken to the playing fields. And this is one of the reasons why we have the Section 106 agreement. The Section 106 agreement is to include a clear schedule for when those works will be completed, what those works will be, and they are to improve both the existing facility, which, as the one of the objectors noted, the fields can be a little bit waterlogged, so it's to improve the drainage and the usability of the retained pitches, and to improve those on Skelmersdale Walk, which is immediately just outside of the site to the west. There will be a requirement for those that schedule of works to be agreed prior to the occupation of any of the buildings, and then the conditions are designed to ensure that they are undertaken in accordance with the schedule of works, and this includes the off-site elements as well. I'm afraid I can't give the complete answer, but that the two things are there because that was one of Sport England's original concerns for the holding objection, and because we've gone down this route with the Section 106 agreement to effectively ring fence the money and to have controls about how and when it's spent, Sport England's objection has been withdrawn. So I'm hoping that will answer those two questions at once. Councillor Smith brought up the site being in the local plan in 2015. That is right. We're not able to speak for how the properties adjacent to the site were sold, but the local plan was examined in public in May 2015, submitted in November 2014, and therefore if people were aware of the local plan when they did the searches, this site would have been forthcoming. I mean, it was originally an issues and options consultation from January to March 2012, where it's likely that this site was considered at that stage. So I just thought I'd set out a little bit more of the background to the history of the site. Clearly, with the adoption of the local plan, it went through the full consultation the full consultation procedure that occurred at that time. So I thought I'd clarify that. Councillor Rana just raised a bit of an issue regarding the trees. I can just share the sort of draft landscape plan. The path along here, the whole idea is this not to be a narrow alleyway. Narrow alleyways with fences along them are unattractive places. So we've got the alleyway, some green space around it, a bit of space for some planting either side. In addition, if I show what we have along there at the moment, there's actually an open railing. So rather than having an alleyway, it'll be like the open view from the houses to the north with a railing across the front, not a sort of 2 metre high fence. Let's just see if I can find that photograph. Yes, so I'm not sure if this, I'm hoping this is coming up, but this shows those houses that were faced onto the site. As you can see, there's a railing here with some parked cars. So you can see the whole intention of this is not to create this narrow alleyway that residents are worried about, and the local planning authority clearly shares that concern that if it was a narrow alleyway, this would not be a good environment for people to be in and be less secure. But with the number of overlooking windows that we have already, as you can see here, and then the additional ones and the width of it with a little bit of planting, it's considered this would be an attractive feature for pedestrians and cyclists to use. I'm hoping I've addressed Councillor Jaggard with the Sport England objections. It may be I just haven't updated the website with their comments. They have been relatively recent in when they came into me formally, and I think I will update those. But yes, they have withdrawn their objection subject to the conditions and the Section 106 agreement. Yes, the concerns relating to the loss of the playing field more generally, it has been identified that Bewbush effectively has a good provision of sports playing fields, but has a shortage in terms of its quality. So there is Skelmersdale Walk immediately to the west of this site, and we're having the site. And this is within H2 and the design brief for it. This site is considered to be excess to what is required for Bewbush, subject to ensuring that we get an improvement of the retained facilities to make those more usable. As the resident said, I think this site's often quite waterlogged, and therefore these monies are going to improve the retained ones so that they can be more usable. There isn't the sort of money here for a 3G pitch. This is to upgrade what we've got. One of the reasons why we can't absolutely guarantee what works would be undertaken is we don't know at this exact stage what sports may be looking to use these playing facilities in the future. So if, for example, it was football, it would require a certain level of works. If it was cricket, it may well be something quite different. And that's why there's still a little bit of flexibility there within the Section 106, requiring the council to provide the schedule of works, what they'll contain, and then to put the money into the ongoing maintenance whilst linking them to the retention of the Bewbush Community Pavilion. There were some questions relating to the windows facing onto the A220. What I will do is, if I show the elevations for those particular blocks, and then I'll explain those in a little bit more detail. So we'll initially show the elevations. So the upper drawing here shows the elevation. This is the north facing. A lot of these are at various angles. This might be, yes, A, B and C. At various angles, you can see with the V shape here that comes down of the roof. So this projects forward, and it's the same around these corners. The windows on the northern side of the building are not particularly small. The idea is that the outlook for the rooms has to be acceptable. So they have north, northwest and northeast facing windows. This both shields these openings from the noise from the south, but does provide them with quite an outlook. As you can see, the balconies have quite extensive glazing. The windows are not particularly small in the other locations either. The smaller ones here are for things like bathrooms, but no, with the openings for the balconies and other living spaces, they would be provided with light and a reasonable outlook. But if we do look at the drawing here on the southern side, there are very few openings. The doors, for example, and I think there's a small window here for what are non-living rooms. I think it's the bathroom. I'll get the floor plans out at the moment. Now the whole intention of this is there are everyday habitable spaces such as bedrooms, living rooms, dining rooms on this side of the building, unless they are against the brick walls, and therefore the whole design of these is to limit the potential for there to be any noise ingress into the flats from the south, and if there is noise ingress, it's going to be just into, say, the hallway. If I can show the floor plans. So just as an example, as we saw, there's a doorway here, which is opening into the hallway and effectively a window for a bathroom. That is the extent of what's facing there. Living spaces are to the north, away from where the noise is coming from. It's the same here. The outlook is for these to the north, side facing kitchen windows, and again bedrooms to the front here with their own windows and outlook. So again, the smaller windows here are for the bathroom. So yes, it's a design solution that both provides, we consider, an adequate living environment for the residents and protecting the other residents in the housing and the other flats further to north. It also helps to protect them from noise when they're using their gardens and those amenity spaces. I'm hoping that answers that query. There was a question relating to noise, dust, etc. And Councillor Pickett is quite right to pick up that strictly speaking, these are not planning matters. They are covered by the Environmental Protection Act, which is generally administered by our environmental health colleagues. However, this particular development does include a requirement for a construction management plan, and the aims of that are to help to reduce these elements as well, so that environmental health will hopefully not have to invoke elements of the Environmental Protection Act. There's also, I think, a condition relating specifically to dust suppression. The other elements that's included in this is also one of the reasons for not being able to have the playing field immediately adjacent to the site improved at the same time that the building works are going on for the development, is that it's proposed that the haul route for large vehicles will come from to the west of the Breezehurst Community Pavilion and then across some of the grass into the site to avoid those large vehicles and the potential impact that they would have on existing residents. Councillor Maguire raised a concern about the loss of the open space and the potential that this would set a precedent for building on other open space. That is not the case. This site has been specifically identified here in Bewbush as where there's an area where there is there is good provision of this type of open space. It's just limited in its quality. This certainly does not apply to all the other open spaces within the town, and each of those will be viewed on its own merits, and this would not in any way set a precedence for those to be brought forward for development. And I'm hoping that has answered. I'm hoping that's answered all the queries. Oh, Councillor Jaggard just asked the query about the expiration date. Effectively, the application it's passed. It's a statutory 13-week time for determination. There have been past agreements with the applicant to extend the time in order to get amended plans, and additional information has been required during the course of the application, and that's effectively what it means by having expired. And it's just that going past its 13-week statutory determination date, and that after 13 weeks the applicant effectively has the right of appeal, but they've been working with the local planning authority to improve the development so that we could bring it to committee. Thank you.
Councillor Purdy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Robinson. Are there any other questions or discussion points from members? I can see Councillor Belvin, you've turned your camera on. Councillor Belvin.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just clarify something with Mr. Robinson, please? You very kindly showed us a floor plan of what looked like to me as a kind of lounge diner area at one of the flats by the main road. It looked to me like it only had one window, which is actually on the north side, as opposed to being better lit. Can I just confirm, have I misunderstood that, or have I got that right, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hart.
Yeah, sorry. I did ask the officer at the beginning, along with the sports field, that with the pitch. He mentioned in the report about the electrical charging points, and I did just query how these would be distributed throughout the site.
Thank you, Councillor Purdy.
Thank you very much. I can't see any other cameras going on, so back to you, please, Mr. Robinson.
All right, thank you, Chair. What I'll do is show the floor plans for those flats, first of all, in relation to Councillor Belbin's query. I'm hoping they're displaying on the system now.
Yes, we can see those.
Excellent. Just as so, what we have is, for example, with these areas here, yes, the kitchen to the rear here, for example, if this is the units that you're mentioning, is set towards the back, but the living space is here with the door and window facing onto the balcony, facing to the effectively to the northwest. Bedroom windows, again windows here. So the rooms are not effectively not going to be dual aspect because of this need to limit the openings on that south side facing, but they have been designed so that they do have a reasonable light that will come into them, and an outlook from relatively reasonable sort of opening. Some of these are kind of L-shaped round the corner. The bedroom here it does have a window. It's not sort of it's not perfect, but the constraints of the site and the noise are such. There would be these secondary windows into these areas here. Now, whether they're opening or not is going to be subject to the detailed consideration when we look at this and look at the noise attenuation measures that would be agreed with environmental health. But I very much doubt if they're going to be opening, because as we noticed, the road to the south is noisy, and if they were opening, I believe it would be likely to cause any issue. But they are specifically designed, one, so that the rooms are provided with an outlook. It is to the northwest and northeast. That is not perfect. We do appreciate that, but it is we do consider it's actually adequate for the purposes of for the future residents. Now, in relation to the electronic vehicle charging points, the applicant is intending to provide electrical vehicle charging points for all of the houses. So each of the new houses that are being built, I think individually is going to have at least one point allocated with it, and it's anticipated to provide 20% in the other shared areas. What I can't say at the moment is effectively the council is the applicant, and the council will be managing this for these communal areas, and therefore we're not in a position here to answer exactly how those are going to be allocated, but it would be 20% within each of those kind of shared parking areas that are being provided, so that they're spread around the site rather than all being in one location. The applicant is proposing to install the infrastructure so that electrical vehicle charging points can potentially be provided in every parking space that would be provided on the site, or even though this is not a requirement that we can actually insist that they do at this time. So hopefully that sort of answers a little bit more about what the council is hoping, as the applicant is hoping, is going to do in relation to those electrical vehicle charging points. Thank you.
Councillor Purdy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Robinson. Any other questions or queries? I can't see any cameras going on, in which case all committee members having had the opportunity to speak, we will move on to the vote. Unfortunately, Councillor Mike Pickett has had to leave the meeting, therefore there will be slightly fewer people voting on this matter. So the recommendation is to permit. I move the recommendation. Can I please ask the Vice Chair to second?
Yes, I second.
Thank you. Will the Democratic Services Officer please call the vote?
Thank you. So this is a recorded vote being taken on agenda item 7. Committee members are asked to vote for or against the recommendation before them or by way of abstention. Please ensure that your video feed is live before declaring your vote. Councillor Ashcroft.
Against.
Councillor Belbin.
For.
Councillor Hart.
For.
Councillor Irvine.
For.
Councillor Jaggard.
For.
Councillor Mughali.
For.
Councillor Purdy.
For.
Councillor Rana.
For.
Councillor Smith.
For the recommendation to permit.
Thank you. So the vote has been taken with 8 votes for, 1 vote against and no abstentions on the recommendation, Chair.
Thank you. Application CR 2020-0192 RG3, Breezehurst Playing Fields off Breezehurst Drive, Bewbush, Crawley, has been permitted subject to the conclusion of a Section 106 agreement and the conditions set out in Report PES 359C. That moves us on to agenda item 8, which is the supplemental agenda. There are no items for the supplemental agenda. Therefore, with the business of the Planning Committee now being concluded, this meeting is closed at 21:53 hours. Thank you all very much indeed for your attention. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks everybody. Cheerio.
Good night all.
Thank you.